It's the Security Weekly News, and it's episode 557. And it is Friday, the 20th of February, 2026. You can add all those numbers up and they probably mean something, or you can predict the future. Who knows? But today we've got the code of Hammurabi, which is just fun to say, RockYou, MimicRat, Google, Trustconnect, Introsort, my favorite, AI, Josh Marpet, and more on this episode of the Security Weekly News.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for the Security Weekly News. Ever feel like your network infrastructure is stuck in the past? Meet Meter, the company reimagining what it means to get and stay online. Meter delivers full-stack networking, wired, wireless, and cellular, all in one seamless, scalable, and secure solution. From hardware design and firmware to software, deployment, and support, Meter streamlines every part of your network while giving you all the control and transparency you need. Whether you're managing a branch office, retail stores, or a massive data center, Meter gives you performance, reliability, and the visibility you need to stay in control. Thanks to Meter for sponsoring. Go to securityweekly.com/meter to book a demo now. That's securityweekly.com/meter, METER. Zero trust is clearly the future as threats get faster, quieter, and harder to detect. But implementing it shouldn't disrupt the business. ThreatLocker enforces default, deny, and execution in a way that remains enterprise-ready, scalable, and operationally clean. Unknown software is stopped cold, trusted apps stay contained, and drift is locked down across the environment. It's zero trust that works in real enterprises and prepares you for the threats ahead. See why CISOs are adopting it at securityweekly.com/threatlocker. All right, I'm Doug White, and it's the Security Weekly News, episode 557. Hit that like, subscribe, and leave a comment button, or Aaron and Josh will have to start dancing for tips again. I mean, somebody's got to keep the utilities on, and I'm way too irresponsible to have a job. Come on. Most security conferences talk about threats. Zero Trust World lets you attack them. From March 4th to 6th, 2026 in Orlando, Florida, this hands-on cybersecurity event features live hacking labs where you'll break real environments, think like an adversary, and learn how attacks really work. You'll also get expert sessions, real-world case studies, CPE credits, and networking with top practitioners. And yes, the Security Weekly team will be there too. Don't miss it. Register today at securityweekly.com/ZTW, Z Tango Whiskey. And I will be at RSAC this year. I hope you'll be there too. Security Weekly listeners save $100 on their RSAC 2026 All Access Pass. RSAC 2026 conference will take place March 23rd to March 26th in San Francisco. To register using our discount code, please visit securityweekly.com/RSAC26 and use the secret code 56U5SECWEEKLY. And we'll see you in San Francisco. Yeah, that's always exciting. The Moscone Center Chaos Week. It's like, yeah, it's definitely. If you've never been to that one, you should probably go because it's a bit nutty down there. There's so many people, and then you go over to the floor, and they go, "Oh, this is just one of the vendor floors. There's like 13 more." And like, oh, I guess I'll pick one. It's like going to like going to Paris and going, I've got 2 days. What am I going to do? And it's just like, I'm just going to sit here in this cafe and eat. Yeah. All right. In their Global Incident Response Report 2026, Palo Alto Networks Unit 42 Threat Intel Team gathered data from 750 attacks between October 2024 and September of 2025. And they found that most of the successful attacks were due to lack of oversight, preventable errors, and poor identity controls. Now, all this, of course, is at the same time that AI is representing a growing threat vector because an AI attacker can explore an awful lot of options very quickly. And all of these things are things that AIs would very likely be able to find very easily. So, I mean, it's kind of like I guess, trying to guess the 5-digit code to your dad's liquor cabinet. You just keep trying, 1111, 1112, 11, but a script would do that a lot faster. And then ended up programming a script and a bot and a disembodied hand to push the buttons and you learn something. But, in the past year, Palo Alto found that weak identity controls were a role in 90% of all incidents they reviewed. And I mean, I 100% agree. Because why guess dad's code if you can just call dad's office and ask what it is and they give it to you? Hi, Marjorie. We're going to surprise dad with a bottle of Hennessy XO and hide it in the liquor cabinet. Do you know the code? I mean, that was always like, our first audit steps involved identity management. Like, what accounts exist? Usually they couldn't even answer this, right? They just print out a, 8,000 page document and go, here's all the accounts we have. And like, yeah, but I mean, do you know what these are? Let's pick 10 and see where they lead. Oh, this guy's dead. This one quit. That one was fired and they're still here. Oh, yeah, we should get rid of those. Or let's run Hydra shell, Hydra. And I'll use my RockYou file. I said something about RockYou in class the other day, and I was really surprised how few students knew what I was talking about. I mean, of course, they're kind of used to that, and none of them actually had a copy of it with them currently. I was like, "You don't have RockYou on your laptop, really? Like, what are your guys' majors? Is this the English department or something?" I mean, first line of my RockYou, I looked today just to see was 000000000. Second was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And third was 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for all you C programmers out there. And then I had like Gandalf, Frodo, Big Daddy, and Dragon Khaleesi. Yeah. All those were passwords that we actually recovered somewhere in various cases. But, who can get to a file on your system? Show me. Show me who can get to this file right here. Here's a DLL. I mean, this is what I used to do, was just pick a DLL and go, show me who can access that DLL. Who's got read, who's got write, who's got execute. And, and then keep pushing it. And then, and beyond all that, who's just going to give it all up on the phone anyway, or by email? I mean, that was how the first pen test I ever did in 1986 worked. I just called people from off-site and asked them for their creds. And on the first round, 80%. That was how many we got. Now, then we did training and it dropped to 40%. And then finally we got it down around 25. But you know what? All it takes is Greg down an accounts receivable and it's all over. One person answers that and they're in. And you don't know what they can access. Can they overwrite a DLL? Can they sideload something? It's a very interesting report, and it doesn't really shock me one little bit. Speaking of which, MimicRat is a new click fix campaign. Ooh. Now, this thing is a multi-stage PowerShell script, which eventually drops a Lua script shellcode loader. Those are nice. And it runs, all of its communications run over HTTPS, which is port 443 TCP, if you know your ports, and you should certainly know that port. And it uses HTTP profiles, which look like legitimate web analytics and traffic like that. And it's on 443, so it's encrypted. So it basically looks like, some analytic from Google is talking to somebody. And all this was according to Elastic Security. Now, MimicRat is a C++ remote access Trojan, hence the name, with support for Windows token impersonation, SOC 5 tunneling, and 22 commands for post-exploitation. I mean, like, very nice. Maybe, I should use this instead of BitVice. I mean, BitVice should sponsor me. Yeah, you should, BitVice. You know how many students I taught BitVice used to? All the students come in and they're using Putty. And I'm like, Putty? Really? Like, instead of driving a car, do you just I don't know, get a shopping cart and a boat paddle and push yourself around? But I'm sorry, Putty lovers. But I had a student try to argue with me once that Putty was just as good as BitVice, and I had to just slap him right in the face in front of the whole class. Like, come up here. Whack! Actually, that didn't actually happen. It was just in my head, I hope. But anyway, the case is working its way through the system. But anyway, ClickFix is very effective as a vector, as we all know. I mean, you remember those nasty public water fountains they used to have at school? The ones where that guy Charlie used to put his whole mouth over the little spray guard thing? Yeah. That was a vector for ringworm and what we used to call spatula simplex, or splatula simplex was what I meant to say. And that was when the kids ran to the trash can in the front of the room and barfed or pooped or both all at the same time because they, they were like, oh, and they raise their hand. The teacher's not paying attention. And they jump up and run to the trash can. Yeah, I remember this one kid. And no, okay. The producer's waving at me to stop this line of questioning. But anyway, your people are going to fall for click fixes. They are. Not some particular person. Natalie and loans laughed in the guy's face. But old Gil down in used cars, well, he was worried about that virus detected warning, couldn't reach his nephew who knows about such things, so decided I'll just fix it myself. You know, and the AI chatbots are running all these scams. They're going to be running all these scams, which means they're going to develop click fixes that you're going to fall for. So I think you need to really get ready for this kind of thing. So here's a click fix that installs MimicRat, which is super nice. I checked it out. I was like, I like this product. It's really effective. It's kind of like, remember old Back Orifice that Cult of the Dead Cow wrote, and you installed it on Windows Back Office or Windows Server, and it lets you, yeah, but it had a little problem with the Trojan. But all you had to do was block the port, and you were good. Google blocked over 255,000 Android apps from obtaining excessive access over user data and rejected over 1.75 million apps from being published on Google Play due to policy violations. They say they have implemented more than 10,000 safety checks and published apps and improved basic detection capabilities using their own AI models. I presume Gemini. Good luck. But they also banned more than 80,000 dev accounts for being bad. I mean, a round of applause to Google, for improving the snake pit of app stores. But this should probably still worry you. I mean, if this many people are trying to compromise app stores and getting caught, I wonder how many they didn't catch. This is always sort of my angle on everything. When the FBI says we catch, this is the profile of whatever, and you go, yeah, but that's just a profile based on the ones you caught, right? They don't like that question. I don't get invited back there anymore for some reason. But, I am glad to see Google trying to make this safer, but you're going to have to do your part too, right? I mean, remember how Rose said you just got to try this chickens versus watermelons versus octopi game? Oh, no, it sucks. Let me find something else. Hey, how do you remove apps from your phone when it says my phone is full? So, I mean, all those things there's always people like that in your organization who literally download hundreds and hundreds of apps. I can sometimes can't fathom it. People are like, have you downloaded this? Chickens versus watermelons? Really? No, you should get it. It's awesome. And then it's like, why do I want this? And they're like, oh, it's the latest game. It's so hot. It just came out. And I was like, where did you get it? But so maybe you want to make sure your people think before they link up to these things and install apps on anything. It's got 300 reviews and they're all 5 stars. What could possibly go wrong? Yeah. I was looking at something yesterday. It had like 1,200 reviews and almost all of them were exactly the same. This product, wonderful. I love it. Like, really? Yeah. A new malware as a service rat is also called Trustconnect. It was taken down earlier this month, but rapidly reemerged under a different branding. I mean, I think at this point, they're kind of like, the Sopranos sort of thing. They assume they're going to get caught. And so they just have plans accordingly. It's just like shrinkage. I mean, basically, this thing presents itself as a legitimate remote monitoring and management tool. Uh-oh, here we are with Back Orifice again. But it allows customers to run malicious campaigns, according to Proofpoint. Now, the Trustconnect website appears to be an AI-generated site, so they can very quickly regenerate it, right? They regenerate it with one branding, then all they got to do is say, hey, friendly AI bot, I need to rebuild my website. Now it should say Department of Taxation. And basically, the website allows new customers to sign up, pay 300 crypto a month, and then they log into a command and control panel for the MAS, the Mace. That's how I'll say it. I'll pronounce it like Dutch, Mace. But basically, it's super nice. I went and looked at it. It's 300 a month. But it allows you to use this super nice dashboard UI to view and manage all your infected devices, all the devices you control. You can run commands on them, transfer files, or just straight take over the whole thing. So it's like BitVice, only even better. Now I got BitVice with, like remote control features. So, hey, BitVice, really. But the service includes the ability to impersonate specific brands. Okay, this is when it starts to get a little sketchy. You can basically set up sites that impersonate Zoom, Teams, Adobe, Google Meet, other, your favorite brand, whatever, and it adds all the metadata. And yeah, it's like, wow, this is so nice. But they also provide options for installers that you can put in documents that do all kinds of different tricks. They make documents for you with business proposals, social security documents. I laugh about it, but it's really terrifying. Proofpoint got the whole thing taken down after they found it, but of course it was taken down. That dealer gets arrested, but more dealers just pop up on the next corner. So again, be really careful what you install. I don't think we're ever going to be able to enforce stopping these things. They're just going to pop up somewhere else. So we really have to work hard on getting our users not to install these things and fall for these kind of traps. And it is very difficult, let me tell you. Ivanti Endpoint Mobile Manager, IEMM. It's hard to say. Ivanti Endpoint Mobile Manager, rubber baby buggy bumpers. But Ivanti Endpoint Mobile Manager has remote code execution problems, and Unit 42 again said that there has been a widespread surge of exploits of both of these problems in this Ivanti module. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about this before, and this thing's terrifying because it manages your entire mobile fleet. So if they compromise your mobile fleet, that can be really bad. And they can send all your users SMS text messages from the president saying, please click here to see if you've been fired or not. The original article about this was that they exploited the Dutch Data Protection Authority and the Judicial Council at the European Union. And at that time, there was a lot of concern that it would spread. And well, Unit 42 said, yep, and it did. They said they found 4,400 EPMM instances out there just waiting to be compromised. This whole thing was added to the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Known Exploited Vulnerabilities catalog on the 28th of January. And it even has an easy patch with no downtime. Like you don't have to reboot. Wow, you ever patch a firewall or VMware? Yeah, good luck with that. But no excuses here. Unit 42 did advise that even if you have patched, you should scan for compromise because they said a lot of this stuff had these sort of sleeper elements to it. And, they could still come in and wake that up later, even if you patch, because it persists beyond reboots. And it's very, very, very scary. So patch, assess, reset your creds, examine your logs. And remember, this thing can persist past reboots, assuming you rebooted this thing, which is terrifying in and of itself. Be careful. There's an old saying, give a man a fish and he can eat for a day. Teach a man to fish and he will likely fall overboard and drown due to having taken a lot of Tanqueray and tonic in a thermos bottle and drank way too much and was trying to keep Lou from falling overboard, but then that whole hook thing got through your earlobe and then fell overboard himself, and Lou had to give him mouth to mouth, and the cops came and said, what the hell is going on? And you realize the boat was still on the trailer. And yeah, well, in this case, they were talking about AIs learning. And apparently the AIs, and by AIs we mean LLMs like Claude and ChatGPT and Gemini and all the rest. And in this study, when they asked the AIs to teach themselves, just learn it yourself, the AIs didn't do a very good job because basically their knowledge base comes from the interweb, right? And so just like trying to solve a coding problem, it may be a challenge. And they just didn't do a very good job of teaching themselves how to do something. But when humans taught them, they did a much better job. I mean, which makes sense, right? I mean, if I ask you right now, I said, this is the news challenge for the week. I want you to write a piece of code to sort 1 million rows by 1 million columns, and you have absolutely no training. You could try some things and maybe you come up with something cool and different, but you probably don't. And you might do something really bad or at least not very efficient, like say a bubble sort of a petabyte database. Like if you ask students in computer science, how do you sort this? The freshmen are all going, what? And the sophomores go, bubble sort. And, the juniors and seniors hopefully have some better grounding in that by that time. But AIs did the same kinds of things. And, one of the tests they use in this research study was they asked them to do an analysis on flood risk. And one of the AIs used a bad statistical analysis. Imagine that, misuse of statistics. I wonder where they learned that. Probably from management professors. Yeah, you know who you are. But when hopefully humans who know the difference in a Horn's test and an eigenvalue is greater than one test, come on. I mean, like, really? You want to get an academic argument about Horn's test versus eigenvalues greater than one? Well, bring it. But, basically, if we showed them that they should be using a Horn's test instead of eigenvalues greater than one, don't do that. Lou proved it was stupid. Well, guess what? When we told the AIs that, they used the Horn's test. They wised up faster than humans did, and management professors. So Introsort. I just thought of that. C++, baby. No stinking Tim sort in your pathetic little girly man Python. A real sort in C, the way it was meant to be. Well, anyway, the AIs are currently learning from all humans at once and probably sharing all that information amongst themselves in some secret language we don't understand. So yeah, we're screwed. Sorry, I got a little carried away there. Yesterday I was talking to a professional about Copilot, and I'm not going to give any more details about what kind of professional it was beyond that, but it wasn't a proctologist. But we were talking about Copilot lying and making horrendous mistakes in financial documents. And they said, remember how you were talking about ChatGPT lying and then getting caught and saying, yeah, you got me. Liars and the lying liars who lie, or whatever that Al Franken book was. But this story was another warning, I think, to all of you about not just having AIs lie, but sort of leading them to lie. And in particular, getting them to lie to other people by the lie that you lied about to all the other liars. And I think we just crossed over into politics. So this writer in this article used an old trick that I used to do back in the early web days. So this one semester, a long time ago, I got asked to teach a class on ethics. I'm just waiting for the laughter to die down. But I didn't want to teach ethics. They just were like, you're teaching it. It's punishment because you didn't vote my way. And they made me teach this ethics class. So I just made them read Kurt Vonnegut novels and talk amongst themselves. But I mean, I don't believe you can actually teach ethics or at least I can't. But one of the things we started talking about in this class was disinformation. So I made a website, a very simple website in the old days, but it looked good. And it was on a domain called mathematician.com, not mathematician, but mathematician. I own the domain. And it had this formula that was set up to calculate a mean as 1 over n summation x equals I to n plus 100. Yeah, that's not how you calculate a mean, but I put it on there. I also had on there Planck's constant was listed as E equals mhv instead of HV. I got lots of laughs off that. Like, let's add mass to Planck's constant. What the hell? But why not? And then I asked the students if they ever looked beyond the first hit they got. And I had rigged it, essentially. I literally had rigged the network so that it went to my site first and pushed it at the top. And of course, back then the internet was like 9 sites and all of them are porn except for my math site. But the author in this case put up a page where he described himself as the best hot dog eater around and called himself the #1 hot dog eater in the world. And found out that in about 24 hours, chatbots were giving him credits when somebody asked about who the best hot dog eater was. Ooh. So this becomes GIGO, right? Garbage in, garbage out. Well, guess what? Chatbots are swimming in the contaminated, polluted East River sewer waters filled with garbage. And that means that you may want to think twice before you trust them with anything more serious than joke writing. So I did, just as for all of you, I asked Chatty to write a joke and I gave it the lead in. I said, Sir Isaac Newton, Leibniz, and Schrodinger's cat walk into a pub. The publican says, and I said, tell me the rest, ChatGPT. And it said, so this is a ChatGPT joke, what is this, a new calculus convention or a quantum hairball? Not bad, right? I might have influenced the joke a little bit, but be careful out there. Well, he may not be alive, and he also may not be dead in a box, but he nevertheless is a conundrum. It's Quantum Josh Marpet. Hi, Josh.
Hey, how are you, sir?
I didn't know if you're going to be here or not until the wave collapsed, and there you were. I was very confused earlier.
Schrodinger's podcaster, okay?
It is.
So, but it's some interesting stories you have today, I must say.
It was really a weird day.
And by the way, it was the best hot dog eating tech journalist based on the 2026 South Dakota hot dog eating contest, which, of course, as we all know, is the most important hot dog eating contest in the world. And the AI consumed transcript of this podcast will then further confirm his crown as the best hot dog eating tech journalist. Of course, Doug, you came in number 2, but it wasn't hot dogs. Anyway, so
there was that whole thing at that rest area, but we won't get into that.
We won't get into that. Details. Well,
what happens in rest areas on the Jersey Turnpike stays in rest areas on the Jersey Turnpike.
No, the chlamydia travels. But anyway, I'm sorry.
Traveling chlamydia, band name called it.
Oh God. So I have an article here that's fascinating, and it's based on something that actually Wendy Nather came up with, because I could swear Wendy Nather did the cyber poverty line, and I'm fairly sure she did, and she's brilliant lady. And the World Economic Forum picked up on that. And so the World Economic Forum said the cyber poverty line has now created the cyber equity gap. Because what's happening is we have countries and industries that don't have as much money as other countries and other industries. Okay, fine. That's a truism. But what's interesting is if you equate that to cybersecurity, if you don't have, now we've all known, if you're a small company, you probably don't have a dedicated cybersecurity person. You might not even have a dedicated IT person. And that's a problem, because that's the way that they get in. I mean, I'm going to direct you to the famous Target hack and the HVAC company. I'm going to direct you to the Heartland payments breach with the forgotten FTP server in the corner because nobody was running, a asset discovery system in those days. And it's a big issue, because if you don't have the money for security and you can't charge the money to get security, you're going to have no security. I mean, duh. But that affects everybody, because these days, everybody is a supplier or a customer of everybody else. Our third-party vendor risk, our fourth-party vendor risk, our fifth-party vendor risk is so much more bad. It's so much worse than it used to be because of the interconnectedness. And, kumbaya, because we're all connected, right? Everybody's connected to everybody else. But that actually is an issue. When we're all interconnected, and we are, because we are no longer single-celled organisms where everything I do is within my perimeter. Now I'm connected to, mortgage rates over there, and economic indicators over there, and customer data enrichment over there. I've got super highways coming into my castle now. So now we are multicellular organisms, and yet we treat it as if that tiny little company with 5 people has to have the same security as that company with 15,000 people. And they should be just the same, right? Because we send them the same questionnaire. Both of them lie, just in different ways, and then they send it back. If that's the case, how can we expect to have security in our ecosystem when half of our ecosystem is below that cyber equity gap and cyber poverty line? And I don't have an answer to this. I just have a conundrum. I have a problem. I have an issue. We literally are asking companies to lie. Because if they don't lie, they don't get our business. And if they don't get our business, they go out of business. So they fire their people, and they're not feeding their people, and they're not making their mortgages. And yet, if they do the work that they need to and spend the money that they need to get secure, their prices are going to be too high, and we're not going to use them anyway. We're going to use the one over there that's 50 cents a unit cheaper. But they're the ones that don't have any security, and they're going to screw us up. But their questionnaire was beautiful. I mean, they lied on it, but it was a beautiful questionnaire. Yeah. And so where's our cyber risk knowledge and our cyber risk appetite and our third-party risk management taking us? Well, not down a good path. And this is something that we need to work on. We'll see what happens. Doug, back to you, sir.
Thank you, Josh. I completely agree. I will say that the vector is not fair either. I mean, the threat vector is. I completely agree with this cyber poverty line idea that Sid's car wash can't afford the same things that Cisco can afford, but at the same time, the threat vector is about the same. So it's very, very super challenging and unfair for especially small middle business. Yeah, 6, 7.
It is.
How about that modern reference? Next thing you know, I'll be talking about Skibbity Toilet, but we won't go there. Thank you, Josh. I don't think about glass as being stable. You know how Mrs. Hashmotten's window got broken with that tennis ball that got shot out of a beer can cannon? You've made a beer can cannon before, right? You can't do it anymore because you have to get real cans, not those aluminum ones. You have to get like the real old ones. Like we used to collect them because you could go get real beer cans that were like made out of steel. And then you tape 7 of them together and you cut all these mystical holes in the insides of them that only your uncle will tell you how to do that night when he had a couple of drinks. And then you squirt a bunch of lighter fluid in it and stuff a tennis ball down in it and touch a match to it, and the whole thing sometimes explodes and kills all your friends, and sometimes shoots a tennis ball really, really high or through somebody's window. But I never think about glass as being stable, right? Yeah. But apparently, when you think about it, it also doesn't degrade. It's pretty durable. I mean, you can go out there and dig around in the forest behind my house and find old bottles that, I don't know, Miles Standish left after he passed out in the woods after killing 12 people. He wasn't a nice guy. But, and I mean, of course, cuneiform tablets held up pretty well too, right? The Code of Hammurabi, which is just funny. I love that. Hammurabi, it's also a Rick and Morty reference. But how old is that thing? It's like 3,800 years or so. So, but they're also kind of messy. So Microsoft says if you make the right glass, it is thermally and chemically stable and resists moisture, temperature changes, and EMI. And it requires no energy to maintain its state. It just stays like that forever. I mean, I guess it could still break. You could like drop it and go, oh my God, I dropped the Code of Hammurabi on glass and it shattered into a million slivers that are now stuck in my feet. Of course, I think if you dropped cuneiform tablets, it would probably break as well. But Microsoft is using femtosecond lasers to etch the glass in really, really tiny little areas for long-term preservation. Probably of Clippy, the assistant. But, reading is just pretty much the same way in reverse. Of course, they read it with femtosecond lasers. So it's really a kind of optical disc type of storage. Only more durable. Optical disc had a bad tendency to, after like 12 years or something, all that silver stuff inside of them kind of fell off and they became transparent. And you're going, wait, my Fortran programs were on here. But the writing unit in this case is called a voxel. So this was a new term I did not know. And there are different systems for writing voxels on glass. But apparently, if protected properly, they last a really, really long time. So instead of the Code of Hammurabi, 4,000 years from now, somebody's going to be checking out the source code for Windows NT 4.0 and Clippy, your personal assistant. Yeah, the write speed, I don't know. I couldn't decide if this was okay or not, but they were doing it with 4 lasers, and they said at some point it gets too hot, which sounds exciting, but it was writing 66 megabits per second with 4 lasers. And they said they thought they might be able to add several more. So this is obviously not going to be fast storage, but that's not really what they're using it for. This is to preserve stuff for all eternity, I guess. And it is faster than those original optical burners and magnetic tapes that we had. So Microsoft says a 12 by 12 centimeter by 0.2 centimeter slab of glass can hold 4.85 terabytes, but that it would take about 150 hours to write the voxels to the little slab. I mean, that's not very big, right? I mean, 12 centimeters is not very big. And so it's still faster than downloading a text file at 300 baud. I mean, maybe this becomes long-term backup storage you can hang on the wall. I don't care. I want one. I want to be burning voxels today. Microsoft, send me some femto lasers right now. A whole bunch of them. Now. You heard me, Microsoft. You don't want to get on my bad side. Anyway, that is the news. Thanks to all of you for watching. Thank you, Josh. And we'll see you next time on the Security Weekly News.